Tiger fans, what's going on, guys? So it's been almost 2 weeks since my last upload, and I want to stay current with you guys, keep my content up. My channel has actually been growing a lot over the last 3 months, and I do appreciate everyone subscribing. So I want to keep making consistent content for something you guys to watch. So over the last couple of weeks, there hasn't been much that's happened since the big trade where Gregory Soto got traded to the Phillies and they got Maton, Donnie Sands, and Matt Vierling. Not much has really gone on in the land of the Tigers. Uh, there has been a few articles and things that come out, and spring training starts at the end of this month. So I kind of want to go and look at what I'm looking for going into spring training, and I wanted to touch on this article that came out. Okay, so Keith Law came out, and I don't know why people respect what Keith Law say. I don't know why that this guy all of a sudden is some prospect ranking god, and what this guy says is automatically written in stone, and it's what it's going to be. If you go back and look, and I don't know if you guys listen to Tiger Talk, it's a really hard hour of baseball talk to listen to. It's on 97.1 The Ticket. I think it's for 6 weeks before spring training, or it might be 5 weeks. It's a kind of a hard listen because you got to listen to Pat Caputo. And Pat Caputo is a guy that always wants to sit there and, no pun intended, but pat himself on the back about how much minor league baseball TV he watches, how many at-bats of these minor leaguers in the Tiger system he watches, and how he was a beat writer in the 80s. Pat Caputo hasn't been right about a baseball take in 30 years, since I was a baby. And he was still relevant covering the team. And all he talks about every single time on there is like, oh, I used to write the Tigers prospect list, and I know all about doing this and the talent evaluation. Blah, blah, blah. It's like Pat, you said that Scott Sizemore was the second baseman of the future. You said that Willie Castro was going to be the biggest player that the Indians regretted trading away when they got Leonys Martin. You said all these horrible takes. Like when the Tigers let Sergio Alcantara go and the Cubs picked him up, he was good for a week. He was saying stuff like that. Pat Caputo doesn't know good baseball takes if slapped him in the face. But what they had referenced in that last episode of Tigers Talk is Keith Law had come out and ranked the Tigers farm system 30th in Major League Baseball, which caused an uproar because everyone's obviously still feeling the aftershock and still very upset, as they should be, about the Al Avila tenure and where it was. Obviously, during Al Avila's tenure, it was very well regarded that he was trying to build it from the ground up, build from a foundation, build from a position of depth of minor league talent to then filter into the big leagues, so they didn't have to go out and do like Dave Dombrowski did, which was deplete the farm system, sign big name free agents, and kind of hamstring themselves for long-term future value because they had a short opportunity to win there. So everyone's trying to sit there and freak out about that the Tigers are ranked the 30th and that their future is horrible and that there's no hope for this rebuild and it's going to take Scott Harris 2 decades to do this. Listen, when the Tigers were ranked 30th back in 2009 to 2014, it was different why they're ranked 30th right now. The Tigers are ranked 30th right now solely because all their best prospects have made it to the major leagues, which is a good problem to have. If you look at Dave Dombrowski era, look at all their top prospects, literally on one hand, and you can have spare fingers, you look at the players that made it that were big-name picks. Ryan Perry was a top-ranked draft pick. He was horrible. Nick Castellanos was a big draft pick, and he played on the Tigers for a couple years, but never really did live up to his potential and what he was supposed to be. Guys like Jake Thompson and Jonathan Crawford, all these, Bo Burrows, all these guys were Dave Dombrowski picks. And they were ranked very low, even with these top picks in their farm system, because the picks that they got just they weren't high ceiling talent. It was a lot of high school arms, not prep arms, a lot of high school arms that threw hard, and fringe hitters, guys like Steven Moya and stuff like that, who struck out too much with big power, and they never had a chance to make it at the big league level. That's why their farm system was ranked so low. And you look at the people below it and everyone else in their minor league systems, it was horrible talent. They had guys like Andy Oliver, just people that were never going to come up and be an impact arm or an impact bat. The quality of talent was not there, which is a big thing because Dave Dombrowski didn't really care about that. He drafts someone, second, first round, high school arm, 6'5", throws 110,000 miles an hour, traded him for someone at the deadline because he was trying to add that piece so they could go out and win. And that was fine when they were good, between 10 and 14. That worked out. But now that the rebuild has been going on since 2017 at the deadline, and now that they took a step back from last year, and you see that 30th ranking in the farm system, people are looking at it the same way, but it's not the same thing. It's apples to oranges. They were ranked 30th back then because their farm system sucked and because Dave Dombrowski traded everyone, and the people they did trade weren't even that good. They're ranked 30th right now because everyone is graduated from the minor leagues. All their big prospects have graduated from the minor leagues and are now in the big leagues. The issue is their impact prospects haven't been impact prospects yet. Casey Mize is hurt and had Tommy John surgery. He's going to be gone all next year. But I still have all the faith in the world in him because he's filthy. Tarik Skubal is going to miss potentially half the year, but when he was up last year, he was their best pitcher by far and looked like a future ace of the staff. He was really good. Matt Manning battled injuries all last year, but when he was on the mound, he took a lot of steps last year. He really cleaned up his command, really started pitching with vigor with his fastball, throwing a lot more firmer fastballs, really took leaps and bound steps forward, throwing his curveballs for strikes and his secondary steps for strikes, because when he first came up, he was such a fastball-heavy pitcher and really couldn't get anything over with his breaking ball. Then you look at Torkelson and Green. Obviously, we all know the struggles of Torkelson, and Riley Green was hurt for half the year, and he came up and had his struggles. But at least they're in the major leagues, and at least, they're somewhat contributing. The Tigers are hopefully going to get 150 games each out of Riley Green and Torkelson. They're going to get a half a season Tarik Skubal. Casey Mize is going to come back and be something, and Matt Manning's going to make 30 starts. So at least they're getting something out of those prospects. And I don't even look at that Tigers 30th ranking and take it dead serious, because the Tigers have a lot of talent in that minor league system. And I've said this and I'll say it again. Most of the Tigers' best prospects are young prospects between the age of 18 and 20 years old and in the lower half of the minor leagues. They are not up to double ball or getting close to double ball, and they haven't really had an opportunity to get up in the top 100 of the prospects. And also, you look at those lists, most of the time those lists are complete bullshit. Prospects are prospects are prospects, and I will preach this until the day I no longer have a YouTube channel. Prospects are not guaranteed. Prospects are not a promise of future success. They are a poker chip that you gamble on that has potential future value, hence the term prospect. So when you make these prospect lists, Andrew Benintendi at one point in time was a top 10 prospect in the major leagues. Andrew Benintendi. Jurickson Profar. I can vividly remember when Mike Trout and Bryce Harper graduated prospect status. Jurickson Profar, who is now a utility outfielder / infielder, who was supposed to... I remember when he came up with Texas, hit a home run against the Indians his very first at bat. He was supposed to be the next big thing. Jurickson Profar is not even signed yet. Will Myers was a huge prospect. He's had a couple All-Star appearances, but hasn't even lived close up to the hype of what he was supposed to be. Trevor Cahill. I mean, prospect ranking lists are absolutely meaningless. So people to get their panties up in a bunch, start complaining about this farm system being ranked 30th and that they're going dead in the wrong direction because of where they're at. It's because their biggest prospects are in the major leagues. And you look at what's in their minor leagues, their talent really hasn't graduated toward the upper third of the minors and started gaining more traction. Guys like Jackson Jobe took huge steps last year. Now, a lot of people are bitching and moaning because Marcelo Meyer, who the Tigers passed on to get Jobe, is a top, I think, 15 prospect. Again, prospect rankings are completely a crapshoot. It doesn't matter. And Jobe is like in the top 100, but he's like in the 80s. It doesn't matter. He took huge steps this year. He finally learned some command and finally started to rise to the minors and post a lot better numbers, because he was getting shell shocked down there his first go around down there. But he ended up graduating up a level, and his slider looked really good, and his fastball command's a lot better. And you look at guys like Colt Keith. Colt Keith took a monumental step forward last year, and he was really good in the AFL. He got in. The only reason why his numbers only looked better is because he got hurt for some of the year. Andy's been working on his defense. His bat's good. Parker Meadows took a huge step. Andre Lipsius took a huge step last year. Not to mention Reese Olson and Wilmer Flores are knocking on the door of it. You give these guys one more year down there, and some of these dudes don't graduate to the major leagues, I guarantee you the Tigers go from having one prospect in the top 100 this year. They had as many as 3 depending on the prospect ranking list. I guarantee you they have as many as 4 next year, because they have a lot of guys who are starting to rise, who are starting to gain some traction, who are starting to gain some tenure, who are starting to gain some experience, that are coming up from the lower third of the minor leagues up to double ball, could be up in double ball, potentially triple ball by the end of this year, and are getting better. So that 30th is solely not because there's not talent down there. It's because their best prospects have made it to the major leagues, which is a damn good thing. Regardless of results so far, these guys have so much time left. These guys are so young. These guys have plenty of time at bats, innings to pitch to prove themselves. But at least they made it to the major leagues, and at least there looks like there's some kind of talent and future value there. Because when guys like Steven Moya made it to the major leagues, it was junk. You knew he was going to suck. When guys like Christian Stewart made it to the major leagues, it was junk. You knew he was going to suck. Andy Oliver, you knew he was going to suck. Ryan Perry, you knew he was going to suck. Jacob Turner came up, another huge prospect by Dave Dombrowski. He was a top 25 prospect. He sucked. And that was the common theme. Dombrowski drafted to trade. Avila did draft, high up a bunch of times. And at least his guys that he drafted are now on the Tigers. So that's good. So don't get your panties all in a bunch about the Tigers having the 30th ranked farm system. Regardless of what people say, these prospect rankings are stupid. These prospect rankings hold no weight, no water, because prospects are prospects. You don't know. It's just a poker chip you gamble with. But at least there's some kind of talent there, and at least there's some kind of, looks like there's future value with the guys that have made it to the major leagues, regardless of what they've done so far, because they actually have talent. It's not like it was before when you get these guys up, these are 4A ball players, they're never going to be anything good, which was essentially what it was. Okay, so let's move on to the spring training half of this. So obviously going into spring training, we're going to be looking at position by position. Catcher, we're going to see what Donnie Sands can do. How good is Jake Rogers? Mind you, he's coming off of Tommy John surgery. Is his arm good behind the plate? Remember this year with the 2 pickoff rule, the first, guys going to be going a lot more with the bigger bases, the 2 pickoff rule. The pitch clock, guys are going to be stealing a lot more. And someone like Jake Rogers, who's behind the plate, who's coming off of a Tommy John surgery, who's going to be really getting his arm tested this year. A lot of people are like, oh, this 2 pickoff rule is stupid. But, pitchers can only pick off 2 times. But nothing ever said about catchers picking over to first. And that's one point I have yet to hear anyone make about this 2 pick off the first rule, that the pitcher's going to pick off twice and the guy's going to instantaneously steal. I disagree. If you pick over there twice and the guy takes a ginormous lead, you can pick off with your catcher as many times as you want. You pick off over there one time, then the runner's going to try to force a pick over so he can get as big as lead as he can, because he knows he's got to go the third time. The catcher can just pick. How many times have we seen Yadier Molina do that? So I think that's a big thing that people aren't thinking about this year with these rules, with the 2-pick rule, about what the catcher can do. So we're going to see what Jake Rogers can do. Eric Haas is definitely looked upon as the guy that's going to be the guy behind the plate majority of the time. We'll see what Donnie Sands can do if he even makes the 40-man. First base, it's going to be hopefully Torkelson's job all year. We'll see who plays there behind him. Hopefully he can make it there. I'd imagine Jonathan Scope is probably, if he doesn't hit well, they're going to make him more of a utility guy instead of just giving him second and try to mix up at bats, because they have so many infielders between Kreidler, Maton, Vierling. They have so many guys that can play all over the place, because, if Scope doesn't hit and this Tigers offense is as bad as it was last year, I feel like they're going to rotate guys a lot more, because they're not going to give guys at bats just to give them at bats because they have to, because of injuries. So like Scope can play some first, second, third, Vierling, Maton, Kreidler, all can play all over. So really in the infield, the only for sure definite is Javier Baez. And then third base is by far still the biggest question. So I'm really interested to see the guys that Hinch puts in at the rotation at third base, to see what it's going to be like. I'm also very interested to see, how Austin Meadows does. He's coming back. He's fully healthy. There's an article written about him saying how he used the Tigers' secret weapon, blah, blah, blah. I like Austin Meadows a lot. You guys know I like Austin Meadows a lot, but he needs to prove it on the field. He looked really good till he got hurt, but they need him to not be hurt. They need him to play well. They need him to be a guy that they're hoping to get him what he was going to be last year. I'm very interested to see what his at-bat to at-bat's going to be like. How many days in a row do the Tigers play him? How do they work him in there? How many DH days does he get? How many days in the outfield does he get in spring to kind of ease him in because he hardly played last year? That's going to be a thing. I'm also very interested to see if the Tigers rotate Riley Green out of center field for with him, Akil Baddoo, and Matt Vierling. Riley Green, last year, he's not the fastest guy, but his first step quickness, and we saw, his ability to get really good reads off the bat, and his first step quickness is really good. But my biggest fear with Riley Green is he's too much of a hothead where he plays with his hair on fire and he dives too much, and they can't risk losing Riley Green in spring training again. So I'm interested to see if Hinch kind of protects Green from himself and kind of rotates him a little bit out of spring to kind of set up what they can expect in the season, where Green maybe plays some corner once in a while just to help give him a break, help his body out a little bit so he's not diving for everything all the time. And they have other guys that can play out there, whether it's Baddoo or Vierling or even Maton's played some outfield. So we'll see what they can do since they have a lot of options. I'm interested to see what Kerry Carpenter, how many at-bats he gets, and what's his opportunity to make the team. I'm very interested to see what the rotation is going to look like, who's competing for what spots, who Hinch, throws out there for the first few days of spring here pretty soon, because obviously Manning's healthy, Bill Brisky's healthy, Alex Faedo's healthy, Garrett Hill threw some, innings out there last year, and now they're getting back Spencer Turnbull. There's still no Tarek Skubal. So I'll be really interested to see that. So there's a lot of position battles that are going to be going on in spring because nothing is definite for a few spots in this lineup that guys are going to get every day at bats. Only a few guys for sure. So that's really about it. When springtime comes and we start to have our first couple of games, then we'll do a spring training preview after I have a few games to talk about, and we can see what Hinch has done for the first few games and go from there. But for now, how healthy is Jake Rogers behind the plate? Does Donnie Sands, push him any bit because, he's coming off Tommy John. There's going to be a lot more guys stealing and throwing. How is third base managed? How is center field managed? How many games does Meadows play in spring? How many games does he play in the outfield versus DH? How many games does Miggy even play? What do they do with Kerry Carpenter? How is Ryan Kreidler used? So there's a lot of questions going into spring that I don't want to waste your guys' time and speculate on until we have a few games that have been played and we can come back and talk about what has Hinch done and how does it look so far. So don't get your panties in the bunch over that 30th prospect ranking BS. It's all hearsay. If these guys could predict what these prospects were going to do and how good these prospects were going to be, these guys wouldn't be writing for Baseball America or ESPN. They'd be working in a major league front office. Dead stop. End of story. Spring training, a lot of good storylines, a lot of position battles, a lot of things up in the air, a lot of people competing against people. Can't wait. Pitchers Catch Report in a couple weeks. So that's all I got for you guys today. I'll be back once we got some spring training going on, and we'll go from there. Have a good one. Go Tigers.